And all of those things, in all of those different ways of engaging and sort of becoming and being at one with and being in union with, and the language changes. I used to talk about unity, now I talk about union, which is a different thing. Unity really focuses on what you believe, and do I believe the same things, and do I believe the same things as God? So my mind needs to be renewed so I can think the same way God thinks. But actually, in relational union, that is the consequence. My mind is focused on what his thinking is. So I can be mind to mind, heart to heart. Well, I started off learning to train my senses by praying in tongues, inside, outside, in my spirit, activating my spiritual senses while I could read the Bible, speak, pray, do other things. So I could do multiple things at the same time. I didn't know where that was heading, but I practiced because I knew it was the right thing to do. I didn't really understand what eventually it would lead to, but then eventually it leads to multidimensional, non-linear living in multiple realms at the same time, simultaneously being. Well, in all the places I am being right now, because of who I am, I learned to do all of them linearly, one after the other, through encounters and experiences. And so as I was learning, I would take 2 hours to engage my gateways, and then I would engage in heaven for an hour. So it would take me 3 hours a day just to do all that. Well, now I am it. So I get those 3 hours to do something else because I am it. But I did have to learn. I had to go to the ark. I had to go through, through the temple, the tabernacle, engage in the things that it meant, surrendering, engaging, engaging the ark for a mandate, going into the four faces of God and the name of God and being in the name of God, accessing the eternal realms. I used to do that all the time, every day, until I realized that I am it and I'm in all those places. And the Father showed me. It wasn't like the light came on and I just realized. The Father told me, this is where you are, and this is all the things that you are, and therefore look at all the things you used to do. How did you ever manage it? Well, I had to manipulate time to manage it because I was spending a lot of time doing that. Therefore, I needed to manage my time in doing all the other things I was doing. Now I get to enjoy life way, way more. I'm so much more active in life and enjoying life. Same thing with, church and all the stuff. You think all the time we used to spend going to meetings and doing this and doing that and doing the other. Now we get to enjoy life. Because really, some of it was, you could say, enjoyable, but a lot of it was duty and obligation because it was the right thing to do. Now we live in life, and I'm consciously, I don't have to go to a meeting to be aware of the presence of God. I live in the presence of God in multiple places and in multiple ways, and he lives in me. All of that is a process, so we all start somewhere and we go on a journey until we are. Then you're not really on a journey so much as you are being, and that increases your capacity in sonship exponentially. It is there, you are limitless. I am limitless. We are limitless. There is no limit to who we are because there's no limit to who God is. And that really does change everything when we can come to that state and so enjoy life. And that doesn't mean that things aren't difficult at times or things happen and you deal with them, but you deal with them from being in a state of communion, of oneness, of love. So if something happens negatively, I don't immediately jump to the conclusion that God's angry with me or that he's disappointed with me or he's punishing me, because I know he isn't, because I'm in constant communion with him and I know he loves me and accepts me and I'm in that state all the time. So I look at something else, or most of the time I just ignore it because it's just like, oh well, I choose the reality of this having a solution, whatever that solution might be. Now, there are times when people are involved that the solutions are not always easy. And sometimes the solutions become impossible because people choose impossible ways of operating. And you come to acceptance of that, and you live in the rest, even in the midst of a storm. You know, because it's what Jesus was like when the disciples were all panicking and blaming him for not caring about them. Because that's what generally happens when things go wrong. Oh, blame God. He doesn't care. Why does he let this happen to me? Well, I never do that, because I know he cares. I know he's good. I know he loves me. I'm living in the reality of that all the time. Therefore, if something happens, I don't immediately jump to the conclusion that this is God's doing. I might have to deal with some things, and I might have to accept some things. If someone chooses to do something that affects me negatively, I might have to choose to accept that if I can't change it. And I can't change it if there's something they're doing. I can't change them. They have to change. I can't manipulate them into changing. I can't get God to try and change them. I have to live in rest, even in the midst of a difficult situation. And we can learn to live that way so that we're never fazed by life or ever think that God is angry or disappointed or any other negative emotion towards us, because he's not. That enables us to live life from a very different perspective